Breaking news in Portugal that could affect you. Whether you already live here or are thinking about moving, the next few months will be politically unstable, and new elections are on the horizon. It all started with the downfall of Prime Minister Luís Montenegro from the Democratic Alliance Party. But how does this impact immigrants, and what happens next? Let's break it all down and understand what led to this crisis. On March 11th, Portugal and everyone living here woke up to political news that will shape the country's future in the coming months. The Portuguese parliament voted and rejected a motion of confidence requested by Luís Montenegro. But what does that actually mean? The Prime Minister can request a motion of confidence at any time to force political parties to take a stand on the government. This allows the Prime Minister to assess whether they have enough support to continue in office. Luís Montenegro called for this vote, but Parliament rejected the motion by 142 votes to 88. With this defeat, the Prime Minister had no choice but to resign, just 11 months after taking office. Immediately after, on March 12th, Portugal's President Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa met with all political parties to assess the situation and is now expected to call for new elections in the first half of the year. But before we discuss what this political crisis means for Portugal, there are some key points you need to know. What exactly led to the government's downfall and Montenegro's resignation? We need to go back a bit to understand the full story. Luís Montenegro led a center-right minority government and has been in office since April 2, 2024. Just a few months after taking over, the first scandals involving his name began to surface. These were linked to a family-owned company in which he was allegedly a partner, Spinum Viva, a consultancy firm specializing in data protection, founded in 2021. According to an investigation by the Portuguese newspaper Correio da Manhã, Spinum Viva had business contracts with private companies, including a casino and a hotel that benefited Montenegro while he was prime minister. Another controversy surrounding him was that his family's company allegedly benefited from a 2024 law that changed the rules on building houses in rural areas. However, Montenegro claims that he transferred company ownership to his wife and children in 2022 when he began his political career. The problem? Under Portuguese law, assets acquired after marriage belong to both spouses, which means Montenegro is still profiting from the company that now belongs to his wife. In his defense, the Prime Minister denies any conflicts of interest or ethical misconduct, even though Portugal's main political parties pushed for his resignation. Currently, there is no ongoing investigation into the case, as the parliamentary inquiry was blocked after Montenegro submitted the motion of confidence. During his defense speech in Parliament, Luís Montenegro stated, "The insinuation that I mixed my business and my political activity is completely abusive and even insulting. A repeated falsehood does not become true, but it does contaminate the political environment, and that is what populism feeds on." Even though he denied any wrongdoing, Montenegro faced even more accusations in recent weeks. According to a new report by the newspaper Correio da Manhã, Montenegro had been a lawyer for Solverde, receiving monthly payments of €4,500 since July 2021. When questioned, Solverde clarified that Montenegro had worked as their legal representative between 2018 and 2022 before entering politics. However, during this period, Solverde negotiated with the Portuguese government to extend its casino operation contracts in the Algarve and Espinho regions. That same contract is set to expire at the end of this year, and if Montenegro had remained in office, his government would have been responsible for deciding Solverde's future. Montenegro had been leading the government for less than a year after replacing Antonio Costa. Costa's resignation had already been controversial. He stepped down in November 2023 following an investigation into alleged irregularities in managing large green investment projects during his administration. Costa had been in office since 2015 and was never charged with any crime. Still, he resigned after doubts about his integrity arose, saying that remaining in office was incompatible with the duties of a prime minister. Now, let's get to the most essential part of this video. How does the political crisis affect immigrants in Portugal or those planning to move here? Under Portugal's political system, when a prime minister steps down, A caretaker government is put in place to maintain political stability until a new leader is elected. However, during this transition period, many important decisions will be put on hold, especially those that require budget approvals or new regulations. For immigrants, this means that any law that was being approved will have to wait until the new government takes office. However, this does not mean that visa approval processes will stop. They will continue as usual since they do not depend on this type of political decision. That said, no new visa types or rule relaxations will be introduced during this time. Nationality applications will also not be affected by the current political situation. The authorities responsible for processing and approving citizenship requests will continue operating normally. However, changes to the recent nationality law were expected to be announced soon, which will likely be delayed until the new government is in place. The biggest concern is that the next government could reevaluate many current immigration policies, since it is still uncertain which party will take over. One example of a policy that could be impacted is the public guarantee program for buying homes without needing a down payment, also available to immigrants with legal residency in Portugal. This program is reaching its financial limit, and the government needs to inject more funding. But that cannot happen until the next government approves the budget. Another risk during this time of political instability is the rise of parties pushing for stricter immigration laws, such as Chega. We still don't know who the next prime minister will be, but keeping an eye on the political developments in the coming weeks will be essential. Are you considering moving to Portugal but feeling overwhelmed? We created From Nomad to Neighbor, a free guide covering visas, taxes, healthcare, and even earning online. Plus, when you download it, you'll be subscribed to our newsletter with exclusive insights. Grab your free copy now. The link is in the description. So, what happens next? The first step occurred on Thursday, March 13th, when President Marcelo met with the Council of State. This council comprises the president himself, the prime minister, the president of the Constitutional Court, the ombudsman, the presidents of the regional governments, and former presidents of Portugal. It also includes 5 citizens appointed by the president and 5 members elected by parliament. The current 5 members appointed by the president of the republic are Leonor Beleza, Lidia Jorge, Joana Carneiro, Antonio Lobo Xavier, and Luís Marques Mendes. The members elected by parliament for the current legislature include Francisco Pinto Balsemão and Carlos Moedas, nominated by PSD, Pedro Nuno Santos and Carlos Cesar, nominated by PS, and Andre Ventura, nominated by Chega. Right after this meeting, President Marcelo made an official announcement confirming that new elections will occur on May 18th. Political parties must submit their list of candidates by April 7th. This will be the 3rd election in Portugal in just 3 years. Political experts in Portugal are already sharing their opinions in newspapers and on social media. According to them, a radical shift in the political landscape is unlikely, as even the opposition was not in favor of calling new elections right now. They didn't have any other alternative. Experts are also comparing this situation to France, where President Emmanuel Macron called for new elections, which did not bring major political changes to the country. And what about the economy? Experts are more optimistic about this topic. They argue that elections don't usually significantly impact Portugal's economic performance, based on recent experiences. At this point, the government already has an approved budget, meaning there shouldn't be any significant financial disruptions. Now, the Portuguese people will once again decide the country's future. Will it be one that welcomes immigrants or one that restricts them? We'll have to wait and see. New governments can introduce new immigration regulations. This could mean changes in visa rules, taxes, and even the public healthcare system. Economic stability may be impacted. Those already living in Portugal face rising living costs, and political uncertainty could worsen things. Public policies and bureaucratic processes might be affected. Under the next government, programs like the Housing Credit Initiative could face delays or modifications. Portugal's global reputation is on the line. The government collapse is making international headlines, and this could influence the decisions of major companies considering investments in the country. If you're planning a move to Portugal, check the description for helpful resources to make your transition easier. And that's all for today. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the latest updates on Portugal's political changes in the coming days. Ciao.